Good afternoon from the Circus Sports of the Mid-Kentucky Downs studio. I'm Ross Johnston. The NFL Combine is continuing today as defensive backs and tight ends will be hitting their on-field drills around 2 p.m. And some notable 40 times from yesterday's session, Texas Tech edge David Bailey ran a 4.5. Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles ran a 4.46. And Ohio State linebacker / edge Arvell Reese also ran a 4.46. Vanderbilt heads to Lexington tomorrow to take on the 18-10 Kentucky Wildcats. Tip-off for that one is at 1 p.m. on ESPN in Rupp Arena. And the Vols will look to complete their regular season sweep on Alabama as they face the number 17 Crimson Tide in Knoxville with tip-off at 5 p.m. Central. You can catch Vol Network's broadcast of the game right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans of Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome into a Friday edition here on Cover 2, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. I'm Joseph Bonanno, and that is the lovely tones of one Rhett Bryan, executive producer of Titans Radio, fresh off a week at the NFL Combine up in Indianapolis. Rhett, how you doing? Busy week for you, buddy.
Very busy, but you know how much I love the NFL draft. You know how much I love this whole architecture process of the offseason. We're closing in less than 2 weeks now on the first day of the fiscal year in free agency, but the draft is where it's at. And it just blows me away every year how I'm reminded, and I saw it through the eyes of Taylor Zarzour, who went to his first combine, Will Bowling, who went to his first combine, just how much, A, is going on, B, it's the whole league converges to one city. Now, obviously, the Rams decided not to show up. So did the Jaguars, and there's a line you can draw there. I still don't understand that, but hey, you do you. But it's just so many things happen. And draft night trades over any of the 3 days, those conversations usually start, as Coach Mack would say, chumming the water in Indianapolis that week. And just, agents are there. When you see Drew Rosenhaus running off in a direction, it's like, okay, he's got something on a hot plate here. Like he's trying to work something. He and his brother, I saw and that's the other part is you just run into everybody in the world. Like I'm not a name dropper person, but you literally can't go 50 feet without seeing somebody. On the way to dinner Wednesday night, saw Delaney Walker because he's in a mentorship role with the league. On the way back, saw former Titans interim head coach Mike McCoy, who says that Fernando Mendoza is a lovely young man. And I'm
like the Raiders don't have an eye on Mendoza. I'm sure he's in that group keeping a swift little eye on Indiana's former quarterback. Well, there was a lot of news specifically with the Titans this week while you were in Indy. First, it came out that the Titans released starting center Lloyd Cushenberry and safety Xavier Woods. Cushenberry on a failed physical designation, which I thought was an interesting little twist into that. He
had a shoulder, I think, is what it was listed, right?
So I think Schefter's the one that's pointed out the shoulder issue, but obviously there's the Achilles and maybe he wasn't fully back from that yet because we know he kind of rushed back there at the beginning of the season, maybe wasn't 100% ready for Denver, but got himself in a position where they were comfortable enough to play him. And obviously the Titans and Mike Bergonzi felt that, hey, that's kind of not the direction we want to go this year and made the move. Then the stuff came down yesterday, which was really interesting because I think it opened up a lot of different avenues of discussion about the draft and some philosophies on what the Titans could do in that first pick at number 4 in the first round, with Tavondre Sweat getting sent to the New York Jets in exchange for Jermaine Johnson, a rare straight-up player-for-player trade, which I thought was really beneficial for the Titans because you got a position of need without giving up draft capital.
So, and everyone has tweeted and posted and written about, why Tavondre was shipped out. I mean, I don't think there's any secret that there's, I think he kind of needed some resources available to him, for lack of a better term, an accountability partner. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people aren't there anymore. And so between that and just, listen, Mekhi Becton is a prime example elsewhere in the league of guys who come in as a really big dude and trying to manage their weight and the battles of trying to do that. And, let's face it, Jeffrey Simmons needs a tag team partner that's available. And once Tavondre got out there, he was available. And there's no doubt the guy can play, but it gets them a pass rusher, which is something they need. And, it's rare that you see just a player-for-player swap, but, you have Jermaine Johnson on the fifth-year option, $13 million and change. And I think you probably let that ride out for a while just to see how all that goes, because he's had some injuries and he's had some things with him. But Tavondre Sweat, I think it's ironic that he gets traded to the place where Jarvis Brownlee landed.
So are the New York Jets kind of just Mike Berganzi's like, I'm going to offload these players.
These are exports, yes.
You guys can have them.
Look, all our coaches are going to the Giants, and our players are going to the Jets. So
it's a New York thing, right?
And then we're getting
Rutherford.
And then the Titans
the
Titans are getting the coaches from New York with Brian Dable and Robert Saleh coming in here. So it's kind of it's just a nice little swap between the Nashville and New York markets.
It is
this offseason.
I'll say this on the receiving end, Jermaine Johnson. You're getting some value there because he's 26th overall pick in 2022 draft. So he's a first rounder. And Titans fans may or may not remember this, but in week 2 at Nissan Stadium in 2024, he tore his Achilles, came back from all that. And people are making a big deal about what the first 10 seconds of a 40-yard dash was yesterday for Sonny Styles. He did a 1.56 10-yard split. You know who did a 1.55 10-yard split?
Let me guess. Is he a Tennessee Titan now?
He is. His name is
Jermaine Johnson?
Johnson, yes. He ran like a 4.58, but his first 10 was, you could see the explosion on the first step.
Which is what, when they're looking at defensive ends and edges and these pass rushers, that 10-yard split is what they look at.
And that's I saw Ramon's leftovers laying over here from the McShay show about buyer beware the fastest 40-yard dash. Listen, the measurables are just a confirmation of what scouts and coaches and evaluators have seen on film. But there's certain things, like everybody watches the 40-yard dash. Oh, my gosh, he ran a 4.2, whatever. It is fun.
It's fun.
It is
exciting
to see a human being just, like tomorrow, Brennan Thompson, the receiver from Mississippi State, get ready. Because he'll be in the 4.2s. Now, I don't know that he'll be Xavier Worthy fast, but he's going to be in the 4.2s. That guy's a legitimate Texas State high school 200-meter track champion. And I saw him up close this year. I went with Taylor, and we went and did that Texas-Mississippi State game that went to overtime in Starkville. Guy had 6 for 76 and 2 scores in that game. And now, he's a smaller guy, but he can move.
He reminds me a lot lot of Dike.
Yeah, he's just a smaller version because he's 5'9". He'll ring in 5'9", 175 probably. But there are measurables that you have to pay attention to if you're looking at things. For example, edge pass rushers. Obviously, if you get a guy that does a 43-inch vertical, okay, there's explosion there. But the thing that edge pass rushers, in fact, big men in general, to show lateral quickness, 3-cone drill is what you're looking for. Like we were talking before we went on the air, I really like Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker from Texas Tech, who had a 6.90 3-cone drill. That's legit. So you can see the explosion. And on the big men at the line, like offensive linemen or whatever, and even D tackles, that first 10 yards is what you're looking for, because you're not asking them to run 40 yards. If something's gone wrong, if you're asking them to run 40 yards.
An interception or a fumble return, something bad, yeah.
So there's certain things you're looking for in some of these tests. But I love what we always call the underwear Olympics. The dudes are out there just trying to make it happen. And, I mean, it's just one of the reasons why the NFL's relevant for at least 11 of the 12 months a year.
So you and I were talking before the show about all of the wonderful and big name guests, the wide variety of guests that Titans Radio had and their incumbent down there or at the Combine.
Yeah, they'll be in a lot of the OTPs, and then they'll be in our draft coverage later on in April too. But
so when talking with all these people from ESPN to some PFF guys to just from everywhere, what was the consensus about the Tennessee Titans from kind of the national perspective, just on where they are at after the Saleh hire and the coaching staff getting put together, bringing in Bradley and Dable, and then what kind of things are they leaning, or that the national people think that the Titans are leaning towards when it comes
at
to
number 4
free agency, and then eventually at that number 4 pick?
So the general consensus, pretty much unanimously, is they loved the coaching hires because of the veteran experience. They spoke very highly of Robert Saleh and Brian Dable at the very least. And obviously there was a lot of talk about what the needs were. I mean, Mike Tannenbaum of 33rd team and former GM of the Jets, he was one of the ones that said, they might want to think about an offensive lineman at 4 because you still need protection and help for Cam Ward. But so many of them were talking about edge pass rusher. The one that stood out to me, though, Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus and does the NFL Stock Exchange podcast with Connor Rogers, a really good dude and a smart cat. He said, Rhett, there's one blue chip prospect in this draft, in my opinion, and his name is Jeremiah Love.
Oh, you're speaking my
running
language.
back from Notre Dame. And, he was just raving about him. He said, now, I may be in a small boat, but that's who I think the one lone blue chipper is. Just talk about his dynamic play and being the third down back, which the elite third down backs in the places they're at, you're like, they Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit and Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey and whoever you want.
Jeremiah Love, by the way, spoke with the media today as the wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs
We're at the podiums.
We're at the podiums. He did meet with the Tennessee Titans.
Well.
Justin Mello, probably like 30 minutes ago, putting out an updated, confirmed Titans list. Obviously, the Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Brandon Cisse, Brandon Cleveland, and Kenyon Sadiq from yesterday.
The Oregon tight end.
The Oregon tight end, which Stoney and I, Stoney, who did the show with me yesterday, was really intrigued on them pulling in a tight end to speak at the Combine.
Well, you're not just interviewing guys for the number 4.
That's true.
In 101 picks, you got 4 picks. You got 4, 35, 66, 101, just to start with. And so, again, for somebody who's never been to the Combine or doesn't understand how it all works, yes, it's interesting to see the testing and to confirm what the evaluators have seen on film. But the biggest thing is you're mining information. The medical checks are huge in this, especially for guys who've had multiple injuries. The other part is being able to sit down in front of the guy and see what makes him tick. What are his personality traits? Does it match what your identity wants to be? And usually, there's a lot of times where a guy is drafted because he did well literally it's a job interview. It literally is a job interview. It's just one of the coolest jobs you can have, right? So those are just, but yeah, I mean, you can't draw a line immediately to go, well, that means Chig Okonkwo's gone. Could be, couldn't be. We don't know. We're a little less than 2 weeks away from all of that stuff, but you're going to do your due diligence in the people and the prospects that you think work in what you're trying to do.
I would also add this, and it's, much less of this than what Rhett was talking about, but I think it still goes on. You don't know how many of these guys would be, potentially released in a couple years or available in a couple years. And you can see their game tape, but you don't know who they are as a person if you haven't talked to them before. And some of these guys can be like, hey, we interviewed this guy a couple years ago at the Combine, a few years ago, and we really liked him. Now, it hasn't worked out with where he's at, but he's available, and we have a good, we think highly of him as a person or a player.
Ross, you bring up an excellent point because think about this, just the sheer numbers of it. There's 319 guys invited to this thing. There's only about 260 some odd draft picks, even with the compensatories that are going to be dropped here in the, shortly. So you may have a guy that you interviewed that didn't get drafted that you are pounding the phones working at the tail end of day 3 on that Saturday about bringing in as an undrafted free agent that may work out for you. So, yeah, either, immediately after the draft's over or down the road. That is 100% correct. Let me just say this from a personal point of view in a very small way. It is, listen, what Coach Mack has taught me about draft evaluation and how all this works, it has been huge because every week you see a handful of guys that were in this, like your rookies were. Oh, yeah, I remember this. This is the guard from Auburn, or this is the center that played at Wisconsin or whatever. And so it just helps you with familiarity, just doing stuff on Titans radio. So teams, definitely, if there's something they're interested in, they can, if they don't draft him, they can bank it for later.
So the other 3 names that got added, just to wrap that up, cornerback Will Lee, wide receiver Chris Hilton, and running back Jeremiah Love. So those are the 9 players or prospects that have confirmed
that Justin Mello has confirmed.
That have been confirmed with the Tennessee Titans.
Shout out to Justin Mello, too. He's now with the Draft on Sports Illustrated.
That's right.
Guy's moving on up in the world. He does good work.
Yes, he does. So the Combine, interesting place, like you said, a place to get a lot of information from. And we'll dive a little bit more into what you learned about some of these prospects while down there coming up in hour 2. But up next, we're going to go a little bit broader. We're going to look around the NFL because there are some big news and notes from NFL teams. As Jordan Dejani of CBS Sports, who joins Cover 2 every Friday, he will join us coming up next. That's right here on 104.5 The Zone. This is Cover 2. Welcome back into Cover 2 right here on 104.5 The Zone, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, live from the Circus Sports Studios. Circus Sports, Kentucky Downs' largest sports book. Joseph Bonanno alongside the executive producer of Titans Radio, Rhett Bryan, fresh off his combine trip. And we're going to take a trip around the NFL as a good friend of the show, Jordan DeJani of CBS Sports, joins us. Jordan, how you doing on this Friday in close to the end of February?
Yo, my friends, what's going on? I'm doing fantastic. It's a big week in the NFL. Not only is it fun to diagnose and evaluate some of these incoming players, but don't forget that the NFL Combine is a big touch point for the NFL at large. This is when the executives and the head coaches get together. This is when they discuss potential trades and what's going to happen in the offseason. So I'm excited to break it down with you guys.
Well, let's get it started on a trade that happened this week while the Combine was happening. And that's the Titans sending T'Vondre Sweat up to New York in a rare player-for-player exchange for Jermaine Johnson. What are your thoughts on this? And when's the last time we've seen a player-for-player trade like this?
You know, I think we did see a player-for-player trade recently, and I'm forgetting who it was, but to your point, it is relatively rare, and I think this is the first trade of the weeks. But I was surprised to see this happen so quickly. You know, listening to Robert Saleh talk about T'Vondre Sweat recently, I thought that, you know, maybe he could have a chance to try to make his mark on this Titans defensive line. I know that there was a lot of talk about T'Vondre fitting in this system, but I wanted to see if he could make it happen. I understand Robert Saleh's system was attacking 4-3 guys, but ultimately they landed on T'Vondre Sweat being sent to the New York Jets. Now, as for Jermaine Johnson, I think it's fair to say, yeah, the Titans won this trade looking at just the face value of the player-for-player aspect of it, because if T'Vondre Sweat was being sent for draft compensation, I think a lot of people would hypothesize it would be maybe a 6th-round pick, 5th-round pick at best, conditional 7th, whatever it may be. But with Jermaine Johnson, he has familiarity not only with Robert Saleh, also Aaron Whitecotton as well. And I think we have to consider that Jermaine Johnson, he's coming off a tough year, and what was a year coming off the torn Achilles too. He's entering his age 27 season, 6'5", 255 pounds. You saw him do a lot of this 2-point stance pass rushing, but he will move around on the defensive front, and he will benefit from some of the stunts we saw from that Robert Saleh defense in New York. So he is entering the final year of his contract. I'm kind of interested to see if the Titans want to work out an extension at a relatively okay number before he hits the field. I think maybe it's more likely he's going to play out a full season before they come to the negotiating table. But this definitely fills a need for Tennessee.
Jordan DeJani of CBS joins us here on Cover 2. Let's talk about what has been released today, and that is the 2026 NFL salary cap, $301.2 million, up $22 million year over year. And I'll start with the question about Big D, Dallas. George Pickens gets the tag, $27.2 million for the wide receiver. And as it stands right now, before they've made any other moves, they're $55 million over the cap. So George Pickens and Cowboys over the cap, go.
Yeah, I will say this, you know, George Pickens is due for a major payday, and it's no shock that Dallas decided to franchise tag him. They're doing this in earnest effort to try to land a multi-year with Pickens, but as you mentioned, looking at their cap situation and just their salary cap table in general, you have to wonder how likely it is that Dallas is going to be able to pay George Pickens the money he wants while they also employ the number 1 highest paid quarterback, the number 3 highest paid wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb, the number 1 highest paid offensive guard, I think a top 5 highest paid defensive tackle in Quinnen Williams too. So what I'm going to maintain throughout the process of the offseason is that trading George Pickens on the tag is going to be in play for Dallas. Maybe they can get a team like the Denver Broncos to bite and hand over a package of picks headlined by a 2nd rounder, and George Pickens finds himself playing on a nice payday with another different team.
Interesting. Trading George Pickens. I didn't think about that, but I guess when you put it out, how many highly paid guys that Dallas has put together, and then on top of that, everybody was saying, well, why not just pay Micah Parsons? Well, probably because they couldn't, sounds like.
Yeah, that was very tough. And, you know, they got some okay compensation for Micah Parsons. I was wondering if this was going to be the first player trade where we saw 3 first-round picks go to the Dallas Cowboys, but they ended up getting Kenny Clark. Maybe we see that with Max Crosby this offseason. Who knows?
Interesting. Speaking of the tag, there have only been 2 players so far this offseason that have gotten a tag. That is Kyle Pitts out of Atlanta and George Pickens, as we just mentioned, out of Dallas. The other player I've seen with a tag potential is Jets running back Breece Hall. Now, I know there was some reporting out of New York that they're currently working on an extension with Hall, and if that doesn't happen, the tag will be put on by next Tuesday. What have you heard from New York with that running back that they got?
So it's probably going to be a tag, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a franchise tag. We could see a transition tag employed when it comes to Breece Hall. I'm very curious to know if we could inject him with some truth serum, how much he wants out of New York, right? You guys probably saw Jermaine Johnson's activity on social media yesterday. I don't think I've seen a player this excited to join the Tennessee Titans ever. And I wonder if Breece Hall would be kind of in a similar situation where he would love to hit free agency. But I don't think the New York Jets are going to allow him to do so. I think that they're going to hit him with some kind of tag. Now, the difference with the transition tag is that it's a cheaper alternative where the player is allowed to negotiate with other teams, but the original team, which would be the New York Jets, has the right to match any contract offer. Now, if they don't match any contract offer and some other team offers him big-time money, the Jets would not receive any compensation should the player leave. So it's a way to hold on to his rights, but in another way, let him test the market. But I know that the New York Jets are not going to let Breece Hall just go for free.
Jordan, let's talk about the NFL draft and its effect on the Titans at number 4. We feel like, unless the world turns off of its axis, that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza 1. And now with the trade that we've just discussed, Jermaine Johnson, they're down a pass rusher. It's probably likely that the Jets take a pass rusher at 2. So, and it's an elementary thing to say, but this draft really starts at 3 with the Arizona Cardinals before the Titans get on the clock. What do the Arizona Cardinals do with their quarterback, Kyler Murray? Because I don't know that the guy's going to be there. And so what does that lead to the pick being?
Yeah, to answer your first question first, I think that Arizona is probably going to look at the offensive line. I think Spencer Fano from Utah or the Miami offensive tackle could be in play at number 3. At least that's what the mock drafts are indicating. But you bring up a really good question about Kyler Murray's future, because there's actually been a report coming out of Indianapolis earlier this week saying that while Monty Austinfort, Titans legend, by the way, while he said that he's had talks with Kyler Murray's camp, according to ESPN, Kyler Murray hasn't spoken to Arizona since the season ended, and it seems like he really wants out. I don't know if there's really a trade market for Kyler Murray at this point. I think that it's likely we could see him released, and that just throws the Arizona Cardinals into the quarterback market, the quarterback carousel, in a very weird offseason when it's tough to be on the quarterback carousel. Could they be a player to go out and try to get someone like Malik Willis and bring him in as the unquestioned starter? Could that be a potential landing spot for Kirk Cousins once he's released? So this Arizona Cardinals team has had a really rough offseason. They put together what I would describe as maybe a questionable staff with Mike LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. So a lot of questions in Arizona.
Is Malik Willis really going to get the $30 million that was thrown out this week from people around the combine? I saw that number and I'm just thinking, that's crazy that a guy who, no offense, but couldn't beat out Will Levis while he was here, and I get it's a different situation. He was able to grow a little bit in Green Bay, but to get $30 million and become a starter in the NFL, what have you been hearing around Malik's future?
Oh, man, I could talk about Malik Willis for a long time. I think this is one of the biggest storylines of the NFL offseason, and I thought it was pretty remarkable that he got traded to Green Bay and automatically looked like a better player. That was kind of confusing to me because we were at practice with him. We saw him play. We knew he had a lot of potential. I just thought it was very interesting that he goes to the Packers. And, even in this past season, during that nationally televised game against the Baltimore Ravens, which the Packers lost, he had one of the best individual quarterback performances from a dual threat aspect that we've seen in decades. And I think that's why there's a lot of interest around him. Now, in terms of his number, yes, $30 million sounds like a ton of money for an unproven quarterback. There's no getting around that fact. I agree. But when we look at the salary cap table and the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, him signing a hypothetical $30 million deal would still make him the lowest paid veteran quarterback in the NFL. Yes, there's a lot of guys on rookie contracts with a low cap number, but $30 million is under Baker Mayfield's contract, under Sam Darnold's contract, under Geno Smith's contract, all of these guys. And with other players like Daniel Jones trying to make a lot more money than he did on this one-year deal with Indianapolis this past season, that's why it seems more likely to me that it is likely that he could sign a $30 million deal. Maybe it's $35 million. Who knows? Maybe there's a bidding war for Malik Willis. I think there's enough teams that would have interest in him for that to come to fruition. But yeah, I would say that $30 million is a pretty good estimate.
Jordan Jajani of CBS joins us here on Cover 2. I want to go talk about another potential move for a quarterback that's still under contract. I had a long conversation yesterday at the NFL Combine with Matt Taylor, the longtime voice of the Indianapolis Colts. He was of the opinion it's like they should put, resources back into Anthony Richardson because they don't really know, the track for getting Daniel Jones back healthy. But all of a sudden there's trade, both he and the team has agreed to seek trades in this. You've seen a link with Minnesota. What's your opinion and thoughts on Anthony Richardson's potential landing spot?
So I thought it was interesting because I guess we haven't really talked about this on the show, but with Daniel Jones going down with that relatively late season Achilles injury, I thought it might have hypothetically opened the door for Anthony Richardson to start week 1 through 3 or whatever it may be before Daniel Jones was 100% and could return to the lineup. And, maybe Anthony Richardson has a couple of good games and that ups his trade value where Indianapolis Colts could maximize what they got in compensation. But there are some benefits to getting rid of Anthony Richardson now. I mean, just to have the ability to bring in a young quarterback and himself, immerse himself into a new system and a new locker room would be beneficial for an interested team. So I guess I can understand why Indianapolis is at least giving him permission to go see what his market could be. I think the most shocking part about this story, as you mentioned, is that there's already a favorite in the clubhouse. That the Minnesota Vikings not only have interest in Anthony Richardson, but apparently, reportedly, Anthony Richardson has interest in the Minnesota Vikings too. And this is interesting to me as well because we know that the Vikings were going to be somewhat in the market for a quarterback. J.J. McCarthy didn't have a very good first full season as starter, but I always thought that the Vikings would be interested in bringing in a veteran, someone who was more established to battle or mentor J.J. McCarthy. Maybe a reunion with Kirk Cousins would be in the cards. I didn't really foresee Kevin O'Connell taking another flyer on a quarterback who's young, inexperienced, has tremendous upside, the most athletic quarterback we've ever seen come through the combine, no doubt about it. But there's a reality where this Vikings quarterback room, if they do make this trade for Anthony Richardson, is still one of the worst in the NFL. Anthony Richardson hasn't done anything in the NFL that screams full-time starter. So I really do respect Kevin O'Connell, and I think that he's regarded as one of the better developers in the NFL, and it would be a pretty interesting match to have him get Anthony Richardson. But yeah, I mean, if the reports are coming out are true, it seems like Anthony Richardson could be on his way to Minnesota.
So we've talked about Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson. I know there's stuff about Derek Carr potentially wanting to come back. And so all of these quarterback moves that could potentially be made in this offseason. One that I think is just a really interesting situation, and I really don't know how they're going to get out of it, is the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa and that giant cap hit that he has. Is someone actually going to trade for Tua? And if so, is it a situation where we see what happened with Brock Osweiler several years ago, where it's more of a, hey, please take this guy's contract, we'll give you another pick for it?
I want to say no, but I can never say never, right? I mean, I think it's in the cards that if an interested team would accept draft compensation to take on some of Tua Tagovailoa's contract, that is possible. But I think it's more likely that Miami somehow parts ways with him with a post-June 1 designation to spread out those massive cap hits. I felt kind of silly because we talked about this subject on the radio a couple weeks ago, and I almost felt like it was 50-50. What do you do with Tua Tagovailoa? Like, is there a reality where you keep him on roster as the highest paid backup quarterback in NFL history? I don't know, but it seems like with a new regime coming in, a new general manager, a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new system, it seems like they would like to start anew. So I would guess that they released Tua Tagovailoa as opposed to trading for him. But I know that Miami is definitely making some calls to see if anyone would take him and if that they could sweeten the deal by sending some draft compensation.
One more question about a quarterback, and this one is relevant to Nashville. There have been some talks, especially with the Anthony Richardson stuff coming up this week about Will Levis's trade value and the debate between him and Anthony Richardson on which one actually holds more value as a trade asset. What are your thoughts on Levis and what his potential value could be if the Titans decide to move on from him this offseason?
So I do think that Anthony Richardson has more value than Will Levis, just given he was the most athletic quarterback we've ever seen work out at the Underwear Olympics, and he has an incredible upside, right? So I would guess that Anthony Richardson, maybe a 5th-round pick, could be conditional given the situation. But with Will Levis, I mean, I think he's fascinating. Like I wrote a column for CBSSports.com a week ago trying to predict who could be the next Sam Darnold, right? The next bust that turns it around and finds his footing in the league and shows what all the potential that he possesses. And Anthony Richardson and Will Levis were both quarterbacks on that list. I will forever be confused why it felt like Will Levis regressed under the offensive mind specifically brought in to develop him. I'm not 100% out on Will Levis just yet. But I would guess that his trade compensation would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 6th-round pick.
Jordan, well, we appreciate your time and taking us around the NFL, especially with everything that can and probably will end up happening this offseason. I feel like this is going to be one of the busier offseasons in recent memory, just especially with all the quarterback moves, with kind of how this draft doesn't have really that one top guy. So those top few picks could literally go, I think, any way at this point. But I appreciate you taking some time today and talking some NFL with us.
No doubt, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
You too, Jordan. Jordan Dejani of CBS Sports joining Cover 2 every Friday.
You want a quick update from Indianapolis at the Combine?
Let me hear it.
Check this out. So D'Angelo Ponds, the corner from Indiana, small guy, but you always hear about he plays so much bigger than he is. He rang in yesterday at 5'9", 182 pounds, 29 and 3/8-inch arms, 9-inch, 5/8-inch hands. He just posted a 43.5-inch vertical leap.
Talk about some explosiveness.
Correct. And the thing is, there's going to be a lot of people like him regardless of the size. Now, we'll see how that works out on Sundays against bigger receivers that are trying to win that red line, the imaginary red line from about 5 yards in to the boundary. Because, he can get worked over by a bigger dude potentially, but a 43.5-inch vert on a 5'9" guy?
That matches Sonny Styles, correct?
Yes.
And Sonny Styles is 6'5".
Right. 250, whatever.
6'5", 250. So
that's what we're talking about when we're looking at, it's not necessarily his 40 time or whatever, but a 43.5-inch vertical leap for a guy that's 5'9", that's some jump. Guy's got hops.
We brought up the idea of the Titans drafting Jeremiah Love at 4. Got a pretty big reaction in the chat, mostly negative. I have seen some positive towards it, but mostly negative. And this question of, is Jeremiah Love truly a generational talent? Rhett, you talked to some people at the NFL Combine and got a little bit more insight on that. We'll break it down coming up next right here on Cover 2, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. How much do you love love? It is February.
Jeremiah Love, running back, Notre Dame.
It is February. It is the month of love. And I think it's a perfect time to address the question of how generational is this running back out of Notre Dame? Obviously, a lot of guys and a lot of people in the chat comparing, hey, Reggie Bush, Trent Richardson, they were quote unquote generational in their drafts. What makes Jeremiah Love have that generational tag and make it actually mean something from what you learned while you were at the combine and then in your deep dives into him as a player?
I mean, the biggest thing is he's a 3-down back, which is the key to success of anybody. And it's certainly if you're going to even think about taking a guy this high in the draft. And like I've seen people in the chat talk about Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is just now to the point where he's really starting to make a difference, game-wise in this. And people would argue, well, how much does a guy really – but there are so many things he brings to the table talent-wise that – I mean, listen, one of the reasons why that I've been thinking about Jeremiah Love going into this week is when Robert Saleh was introduced as head coach, one of the things he said was, we need something else for Cam so that he doesn't have to play Superman for 60 plays a game. Well,
run game is a good way to help that.
Right. And that could have meant that we're not drawing a direct line to that saying that's exactly what he meant. He could have meant an offensive lineman. He could have meant a wide receiver. He could have, whatever. But, I mean, you look at the guy's body of work, 6.9 yards per carry. He set the Notre Dame school record for 21 total touchdowns and 12 starts. Think about how many players have come through Notre Dame. And he's a Heisman finalist and Doak Walker Award winner. Like, the thing that the people at the Combine were talking about, all the national pundits that we talked to, was talking about his footwork and making people miss. Like, he has an ability to produce forced missed tackles. And then I go back to what I said to you guys on 3HL the other day with Brent and Mark Mariani and you. One of the telling stats for the Titans, like, the offensive stats were not good, no question. You go 3-14, you figure, oh yeah, there's probably not a lot of grace there, right?
There, yeah.
But 16% of the Titans' runs were for no gain or for a loss. That's alarming. But it also tells, and I think they finished 4.2 yards per carry average throughout the season for whoever touched the ball in a run effort. And listen, the run game is never going to go away. I mean, yeah, a lot of quarterbacks are doing that kind of thing now, but you need a guy that can help you out of the backfield and carry the rock as well. You got to get better in that. And listen, I know why so many people are arguing in the chat because there are so many needs. I get it. And I'm not saying he's going to be drafted at 4. He could be, but there's a lot of things that they've, got to work through. And the other part of it is, we haven't gotten to free agency yet. We have no earthly idea.
I mean, they could go out.
That may help set some of the table as to what is what.
I mean, they could go out and sign Kenneth Walker, and then all of a sudden, you don't need to draft a running back anymore. So,
correct.
But just purely looking at if the draft was today, I would 100% okay with them drafting Jeremiah Love at 4, especially because I think like I mentioned yesterday, I think the edge class is so deep that you can get a starter at number 35 in the second round.
So at 35 in the second round, names that you could hear. There's one that I really like from Illinois, Gabe Ackus. R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma is a name you will hear in that neighborhood. There's several different fellas that you could hear that might be available at 35. We're talking to Dane Brugler, the athletic longtime writer and author of The Beast. I think what do you have, 17 pass rushers in his top 100? So 16, like 17. Yeah. The great thing for the Titans is it is a great year to have needs at wide receiver, at corner, and at edge pass rusher. Because guess what? Those are the riches. Yep. Those are the riches in this draft. If you're looking for a quarterback, Not so much. You're looking for a running back outside of Jeremiah Love, not as much. Value later on in, the middle rounds and day 3, but there's not a ton in a lot of these position groups.
We want to hear your thoughts on what you think about Jeremiah Love and whether or not he fits with the Titans at number 4. Let's go to the phone, 615-737-1045. Scott, you're on with me and Rhett here on Cover 2. What you got?
Afternoon, fellas. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention about Jeremiah Love, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so this may sound biased, but I've watched him for 3 years. And the reasons running backs get pulled on third down is they can't catch the ball and they can't pass block. I tell you, if you haven't done it already, pull up tape of Jeremiah Love pass blocking, and you'll be astounded. The dude never gets beat. He puts people on their back. If you have a bad running back that's big and fast, he can outrun people, he can run over people. He's done both. And you got him on third down, you're not giving up pass blocking, and you also have the potential for him running a route. He's split out wide and run routes. This dude, we're not going to the Super Bowl next year. We probably won't even make the playoffs. And you take the best player available when you're that far away. I get we got a lot of holes to fill, but we also got a lot of cap money. I feel like we're going to fill some of those holes. And I think Jeremiah Love at 4 he'd be a bigger help to Cam than any other receiver in this draft. So just want to give my 2 cents.
Thanks for chiming in, Scott. That was a good synopsis there.
Yeah, I think the pass protection part of that is really big because he looks like a professional.
Well,
in that facet of his game.
And Scott, the caller there, brought up a valid point with that because a lot of these backs in college are not asked to do that. Pass pro is something that they're immediately worked on and coached and talked through when they go through rookie minicamp and beyond, because it's just not in the college game quite as much as maybe it was at one time or overall. But yeah, and look, I know people in the chat are saying, but what about the offensive line? Listen, we know that. We know that they have issues with the offensive line. They're going to have to find a starting center after releasing Lloyd Cushenberry. We hadn't gotten to that stuff yet, so let's just see what happens first. But I understand that people are like, you're silly. A running back at 4? Like, well, I don't know that this is just any running back.
I was going to say, Rhett and Joseph, talk about a guy like Love as well. When you were the focal point of a defense's scouting meetings during the week, which I imagine he was even 2 years ago, obviously this past year, and you were still able to go out there and dominate like that, that says something, because that doesn't happen much even at the college level, that you first meeting of the week for a defense going into Notre Dame week, we have got to stop 4, and it never happened. It's never happened. There aren't many players that can do that and can handle that every week. So.
Yeah, and my other point with Jeremiah Love is when you look at the Titans running back situation, just real quick before we get into break so we can hit the top of the hour, is you look at Tony Pollard, this is his last year under his current contract, and that's if he plays under the Titans this year. We don't know what they're going to do with him, whether or not it's a trade candidate, a release candidate, whatever. And then you look at Tyjae Spears, who I think has shown some flashes, but I don't know if he's shown enough in his 2 years as a Titans running back to warrant a long future with the team.
Well, here's the thing about Tyjae, and I'm the number one fan club member with him. It's been the availability.
That too.
And that's just because Tyjae can play, but it's been the availability and getting dinged up.
And what's the number one thing that you have to be in the NFL besides a decent football player is you got to be on the field. So we're going to dive a little bit more into what Rhett saw from some of these prospects at the Combine, maybe some guys he has or he thinks Titans fans should keep an eye on. We did Stony 7 yesterday. We're going to do Rhett's Nuggets. I saw someone that put that in the chat. We're going to do Rhett's Nuggets coming up in the hour, too. We're also going to break down a little preview of Tennessee, Alabama, top 25 matchup going over in Knoxville. We'll do that here in a little bit as well. You're listening to Cover 2 on 104.5 The Zone.
There are a lot of things Americans split 50-50 on. Politics, working from home versus the office, or coffee versus tea. But there's one thing we all agree on. Hey, it's Blaine Bishop. Taking your car in for repairs can be complicated. Your repair is only as good as the person under the hood working on your vehicle. And most of the problems in fixing your vehicle is knowledge issue, not someone trying to rip you the freak off, right? Yes, and a lot of techs are not properly trained. So they end up guessing what to do, and that causes delays in getting your vehicle back or repeat visits for the same freaking issue. For around a quarter century, let's say, Eurofix has done things differently. Every visit starts with a free 15-minute no-rinse inspection so you know what's going on before we start the work. And Eurofix pays its technicians more than any other company does to attract the best and the brightest talent around. And Eurofix still fixes European vehicles at below dealer pricing with a 3-year, 36,000-mile nationwide warranty on all the work Eurofix performs. And rental cars are available as well. Locally owned, family run, with 5 locations and more to come. And all you have to do is just go online and check them out at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Good afternoon from the Circus Sports of the Mid-Kentucky Downs studio. I'm Ross Johnston. The NFL Combine continues today as defensive backs and tight ends are hitting their on-field drills. In some notable 40 times from yesterday's session, Texas Tech edge David Bailey ran a 4.5 40. Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles ran a 4.46, and Ohio State linebacker / edge Arvell Reese also ran a 4.46. Vanderbilt heads to Lexington tomorrow to take on the 18-10 Kentucky Wildcats with tip-off scheduled for 1 p.m. on ESPN and Rupp Arena. The Vols will look to complete their regular season sweep on Alabama as they face the number 17 Crimson Tide in Knoxville with tip-off at 5 p.m. Central. You can catch Vol Network's broadcast of the game right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news and once on your home for the Titans of Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour 2 of the Friday edition of Cover 2, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, live from the 104.5 The Zone Circus Sports at the Mid-Kentucky Downs Studios. I'm Joseph Bonanno alongside Rhett Bryan, the executive producer of Titans Radio, filling in for Zach Lyons and the hitman Blaine Bishop on this Friday. They'll be back on Monday. Zach got some LASIK done on his eyes, so he's going to be able to see without glasses, even though I think he said that he's planning on wearing fashion glasses just because he's had glasses on so long. He's just
That sounds bougie, but hey, you do you, buddy.
Hey, if you get LASIK, you can be bougie.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We've been talking about the NFL Combine and kind of some things we've learned this week. Obviously, there's still a lot more testing to be done.
Yeah.
The defensive backs and the tight ends actually just now getting underway with their testing. So we can keep an eye on some of the numbers that come out from that. I know there's a lot of cornerbacks that the Tennessee Titans are going to keep their eyes on. I'm interested to see what Caleb Downs tests like today. I'm not sure how many tests he's actually doing.
This is the thing. You have to watch this thing and follow people. A lot of guys just like, no, I'm only doing this, or I'm not doing anything. I'm doing it all at the pro day. And then some guys say, no, I'm all in. I'll do everything.
Unfortunately,
you just have to follow along.
Tennessee cornerback Jermod McCoy, who spoke yesterday at the podium, said not doing any testing today. He's going to wait till Tennessee's pro day. I believe I saw a quote that said his body, he didn't feel like his body was 100% ready to go all out at the combine.
Yeah, and the thing I heard behind the scenes is that the trainers and things thought he was pretty close. Maybe could have done it, but maybe there's just the psychological part of it's like, I need to test this a little more. And I think Tennessee's pro day is March 31st, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's right.
I believe somewhere around there. We can look it up and get the right date. But, that's an interesting guy because I wonder if teams will obviously I think teams have already flagged him because of the injury stuff. I mean, he hasn't played football in a full year. Missing all of 2020.
Right.
Well, it was January of 2025 when he tore his ACL, and he hasn't done anything in 13 months. He hasn't done anything in 13 months,
right.
Exactly. So it could be an interesting guy on whether or not he may slip or not in the first round. I know there's another Vol quarterback, Colton Hood, that has been getting increasingly more attention as the Jermod McCoy news starts to spin. So that could be interesting. But plenty of news and notes from the NFL Combine. I do want to update the list of confirmed Titans interviews. Teron Davenport adding a couple of names to the list that Justin Mello put together. Wide receiver out of Indiana, Omar Cooper Jr., who's a guy that you like. And another wide receiver, this guy who won the Blitnikoff, USC wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon.
Yeah.
So, wide receiver is definitely a need for the Titans in this draft. I know some of the conversations I've heard around it is that maybe this is a draft where multiple wide receivers again, just like last year with Chimdike and Elikayo Manor. But I wanted to ask you, because obviously I think we've agreed that at 4, a wide receiver feels unlikely.
I think if you're going receiver, and now listen, it's up to the team and what they like. Like every one of those NFL War Room draft boards are a little bit different than the other, and some of them are vastly different. If you're the Titans and thinking about a receiver at 4, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, but I would think if you're going 4, it would be a Carnell Tate from Ohio State, just because he's a big receiver. I mean, he'll ring in at 6'3" and change, and the footwork that he possesses, he creates separation a lot. He has a good route tree, and he creates his drop ball percentages. I mean, he just doesn't do it a lot. And think about this. That's a guy that is getting thrown to quite a bit because everybody else is covering up Jeremiah Smith.
Who will be available next year, and I think could have a legitimate chance at a top 3 pick in an NFL draft, which is wild to think that a wide receiver being taken in one of the top 3.
Well, I mean, I've been around long enough to see receivers taken at 1 and 2, so it's not out of the realm of I think there's a better chance in next year's draft class because man, this one's pretty good, but that one's going to
be insane.
It could be insane. And Mekhi Lemon, I see a guy in the chat here. Mekhi Lemon is legit. He absolutely is legit. All God does is catch football.
Yes,
I out of the big 3 everybody's been talking about, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Southern Cal, and then Jordan Tyson, Arizona. I personally like Mekhi Lemon almost better than I like the other 2. Jordan Tyson, the medical checks is what's going to be on him because when he was at Colorado, he tore ACL, MCL, PCL, and then he had a collarbone and a hamstring issue last year, the soft tissue that they talk about with him, that stuff keeps cropping up. I got nothing against Carnell Tate at all. I think all 3 of those guys could make somebody a good receiver. But, there's even a thought that you guys may have talked about it on 3HL, but do they find a receiver they like in round 2 and wait and see if they can load the wagons for something in next year's receiver class? Because, I mean, if we're being honest, they need a number 1 and a number 2 receiver. Mm-hmm. You've got 3 and 4. You got those guys last year. You need number 1 and number 2 more than likely. But it just depends on what flavor of ice cream you like. It's like Baskin Robbins.
Let's say they go the route that the mock drafts are portraying, and it's an edge rusher or even Love at 4. What are some names in that wide receiver area or that wide receiver class that you're interested or you think Titans fans should keep an eye on for the later rounds?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Omar Cooper Jr. is one that Teron Davenport's reporting that they had met with. And his teammate at Indiana, Elijah Surratt, that's another one you should pay attention to.
I know Slay really likes him.
He's like and this is, I'm not trying to be a slight to golly, our receiver that we had. He went to Miami last year in free agency.
Nick
Westbrook-Akine.
I almost said Nicholas Petit Frere. That's not a wide receiver.
He's a much better version of that, and part of that's because they both played the same place. But
oh yeah, Indiana, he is a Hoosier.
Yeah. I would start with a couple of those. I mentioned Brennan Thompson in hour 1. If you're looking for a smaller, just speed burner. You got options. I mean, that was the other thing. I think Dane Brugler had 16 wide receivers in his top 100. And you're going to get those. Listen, 7-on-7 football for youth is going to create a pipeline for a lot of these skill positions.
Where are you on a guy like Chris Bell out of Louisville coming off that ACL injury late in the year?
See, maybe that is your answer, is that you take him, like if he slides to 66 or even definitely 101, like take a flyer. Mm-hmm. Because Chris Bell I think he's explosive and legit as all get out. But the ACL, because it was late November, early December when
I think it was late November, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's a guy that if he was healthy here, he would be in some conversations about early night 2, maybe even bottom of round 1. Casey Concepcion is another one you'll hear a lot about.
I saw some quotes from his media availability today at the podium, and he seemed like a very confident guy. I think he was asked, like, what is the team getting when they put the ball in your hands? And he goes, I'm electric. I mean, that is Watching him at NC State, I remember when Tennessee played him, he was the one thing that Tennessee could not stop. And that was in 2024 when Tennessee had one of the better defenses in the country. And then he goes to Texas A&M, and he's their wide receiver one, and he's making plays all over the field with for a guy like Marcel Reed, their quarterback down there.
And that's, regardless of shapes and sizes and positions of receivers, I think that's something the Titans are looking for is an explosive player. They need someone to move the chains to help Cam Ward move the chains. Not listen, Elkai, Manor, and Chim did a fine job. They're not a 1 or a 2 receiver if we're looking at the pecking order of things.
When you look at players and you base on their measurables versus their talent, and you hear what Saleh and Berganzi and this staff and front office are looking for. Like, we've heard 3 words, I feel like, from those from that. It is length, it is speed, and it is violence. How much give and pull do you either for you personally, or do you think that the Titans could give when it comes to evaluating, okay, this guy is a talent, but it doesn't necessarily fit the body style, or, hey, this guy doesn't have the production in college, but when you look at his measurables, it's exactly what we're looking for?
I think the thing that you hear outside of those 3 buzzwords, they're looking for good football players at the end of the day. And some of these guys are really athletic, but are they good football players? There's arguments and conversations about that every NFL draft. And I think they're just looking for really good football players. I think a lot of those guys that you would pluck off that Indiana national championship team are like, you're going to play good football for that guy. They exemplified team to me. When we got into that college football playoff, I thought, is there a way they lose this? Because right now they're just kind of all working together.
They're disciplined.
Yeah.
The chemistry was there.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. Just talking, we probably need to take a break. I want to talk to you about some of these draft guys at the Combine, because this is a sneaky good off-ball linebacker class. And some of those will be hybrid players, like one I'm going to mention, that will be more of a secondary flex player.
All right, you heard that. Rhett's got some nuggets about off-ball linebacker and some other draft prospects. We'll dive into that a little bit more coming up next, right here on Cover 2, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. So the cornerbacks are currently testing right now at the NFL Combine. Rhett, you just got back from Indianapolis, and I'm looking at some of these scores or some of these numbers, just some that jump off the page in vertical. We mentioned D'Angelo Pons at 43.5. Will Lee III out of Texas A&M, who the Titans met at, 42-inch vert. Colton Hood out of Tennessee, 40.5-inch vertical.
It's all explosion.
A lot of explosion. Also, I was looking at the broad jump. Julian Neal, who is a very long cornerback, 32 3/4 inch arms, standing at 6'2", 11.2 broad.
That's Arkansas, right?
Or out of Arkansas,
Yeah.
Correct. So
11.2. Yeah.
And then Will Lee had an 11-inch broad or 11-foot broad, and then Brandon Cisse, another cornerback that the Titans have reportedly met with, 11 or 10-foot 11.
And notable, there's a lot of notable corners in this group that are not running 40s today. Mansur Delane is one from LSU. Avion Terrell from Clemson. Obviously, Jermod McCoy's not doing any testing. D'Angelo Pons, Indiana, not running. Brandon Cisse, South Carolina. Keith Abney, the second from Arizona State. Keontae Scott, Miami. So there's some pretty notable names that are obviously going to wait and do that at their pro days.
Speaking of the 40, some coming in, cornerback, a guy you and I were just talking about in the break, Dalen Everett out of Georgia.
Yes.
4.38.
Thank you. And long. That's a long corner right there.
You and I were talking about a guy that maybe the Titans look at in the later rounds, maybe around the 5th or so, because that is a position of need, cornerback. But you wanted to talk about some off-ball linebackers that you found interesting when doing your research.
Well, first of all, just from a glance, this draft is defense-heavy, talent-wise. And a lot of that stands out more just because of lack of quarterbacks, lack of running backs. But the thing that gets lost in this is off-ball linebackers. There's 8 to 10 of those guys that are really good players that are going to make you solid starter, maybe even be, Pro Bowlers, chance at all pro. A guy I really like, and just kind of looking through this, Jake Golday from Cincinnati. He's 6'4", 240. He was a pass rusher. He was a stand-up pass rusher, defensive end at Central Arkansas. But here's what's wild. At Cincinnati, in that defense, they played him all over the place. He had nearly 500 snaps in the slot at 6'4", 240.
That's a big slot corner.
Yeah, no doubt.
Especially in college.
Absolutely.
Usually your college, those I think they call it the star position, or they're typically smaller guys. So having a guy stand at 6'4" playing that, no thank you.
And he's a Tennessee kid. He's from Arlington. He's from West Tennessee. Another one I really like at a smaller linebacker is Kyle Lewis from Pitt, from University of Pittsburgh. 6 foot, 220, arms 31 1/4, a hand size 9.5, ran a 4.53 in the 40. But this is a guy, they used him like a big nickel flex type player, almost like a star type player. 1,500 plus snaps in his last couple of years at the University of Pittsburgh. He's a guy that people are starting to pay attention to. He ran, like I said, 4.53 in the 40, but his first 10 was 1.58. 39.5 vert, 10.9 broad. There's explosion there. And then the guy that I really started to like as I watched Texas Tech run down through the season, especially getting into the college playoffs, is Jacob Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez, what was he, 6'1", I guess? But he ran a 4.57 in the 40, 1.6 in his first 10, 38.5-inch vert, 10.1 broad, and ran a 6.90 three-cone drill. So shows the lateral quickness in this. These guys I'm mentioning going to make somebody fine ball players.
When you're looking at the Titans, because I think that off-ball linebacker position is something that they need to address this offseason, whether it's, in the draft, like later in the draft or in free agency. Say they go the draft route. Say they want to find a guy in the draft because that's been Berganzi's that's kind of been his ideology is you build through the draft.
Correct.
Draft and retain.
Draft and retain, draft and develop.
Where do you think, based on the roster needs and kind of the depth of all these positions, could you see them maybe targeting a guy like Jacob Rodriguez?
As far as like what round?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Jacob Rodriguez, I think, will probably be a night 2 draft pick. In fact, several of these guys will be like C.J. Allen from Georgia is another good one that you should pay attention to. As far as where the Titans could potentially target one, I mean, it could be as early as night 2, but certainly day 3. Because when you think about pass rusher, you think about receiver, you think about corner, the other things that they need. And again, that's not knowing what they do in a little less than 2 weeks on March the 11th when free agency starts. But what I'm saying to you is there's some good players that can help you. There's not a lot of world beater type players in this. It's solid starters. Mm-hmm. It's a meat and potatoes kind of draft. There's a lot of interior defensive linemen in this draft too that tested really well yesterday.
Another need for the Tennessee Titans. I know you and I were talking about Caleb Banks out of Florida.
Oh, my gosh.
Who is just a massive human being.
6'6", 327. He's the wing king this year. 35-inch arms, nearly 86-inch wingspan.
Incredible.
And a guy at that size still had a 32-inch vertical leap, a 9'6" broad.
Very athletic.
Good gracious. I mean, again, we're talking about some guys that look like they were built in a lab. They're just massive human beings. And I think Caleb Banks would be talked about much higher up. He missed all but 2 games with a foot injury for the Florida Gators. And, of course, everybody's talking about Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. But on the defensive line, Grayson Halton, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma, tested really well. Good-sized guy. Malachi Lawrence. But, listen, I know we spent a good chunk of the first hour talking about, what if they took Jeremiah Love at 4? Mm-hmm. And we're playing with that idea. They're still talking about it in the chat, by the way. It set the chat on fire, I guess.
Good.
In my personal opinion right now on February 27th, I still think that's a Reuben Bain pick at 4. Just because now that Tavondre has been traded, and I'm not saying they're the same kind of guy, but if you listen to what Gus Bradley said and his availability 2 weeks ago, the defensive coordinator, they envisioned one of their ends being a solid play every down dude or whatever, and the other one is a guy that starts on first and second and then rotates inside. Well, that's Reuben Bain because he did that for Miami up and down that front. And then hearing Mike Borgonzi again this week says, listen, even or odd front defenses, it's the ends are what matters. And then you work in the other, and then just seeing what Robert Saleh has done in his defense and rotating guys in and out, giving multiple looks and keeping guys fresh. I would not be disappointed with Reuben Bain at all. I don't care what arm length he's got. The motor runs white hot.
Yeah, Stoney and I said yesterday that, regardless of which direction, if they want to go the splash pick and go after Love because they think that they can get a guy in the second round, or if they want to go and stick with, get the best edge player that they possibly can, they're going to get a decent player at number 4. It's what happens when you pick in the top 4. It's what happens when you only win 3 games the year before.
These are the dividends, and you're right. You could get an all-pro or a whatever, but you're right. Because you're in the top 5, if you do it right, you're going to get a really good football player.
And then your next steps are just getting them prepared to play in the NFL. And obviously, I think with this coaching staff, I think they are set up to create a roster and to mold a roster that will play in the NFL and find some success more than, the 3 games that they had in 2025.
Yeah, and again, the biggest thing right now to me is seeing what they do in free agency. They've already made a couple of moves. It's like, okay, we're percolating now. Got a little stuff brewing back here, right? Between the reported trade for Jermaine Johnson and shipping Tavondre Sweat off, and then releasing your starting center and a safety back there in Xavier Woods. So they're already showing you they're going to do some things. And, that was the other thing. I'll say this as a takeaway that I didn't mention earlier, and all the national pundits we talked to is they quickly were like, hey, listen, the New England Patriots won 4 games last year. They had the number one amount of money to spend in the cap. There's nothing to say that the Titans couldn't follow in those footsteps. I'm like, well, I like how you're thinking. I think they're a little further away roster-wise. And I think Mike Morganzi would tell you that as well. But they can improve themselves, and that's what this whole thing's about.
Looking at the cornerbacks currently running the 40, Tennessee cornerback Colton Hood ran a 4.45 in his first unofficial time.
That dog will hunt.
Dalen Everett still leads the way out of the guys that have ran with that.
You said 4.38?
4.38.
And that was on their first run. So they get 2.
First runs, yeah.
They get 2
and these are unofficial times as of now.
Yeah.
Chris Johnson, a guy out of San Diego State, I've seen a lot of people mention, ran a 4.43. So a lot of 4.4 guys in this cornerback group, which I think plays back into the fact that this is one of the deeper groups in terms of the deepest positions in this year's draft.
Yeah, if you're talking deep positions in this draft, it's edge pass rusher, it's wide receiver, and it's cornerback.
And that's why I don't, I'm not afraid, unless they go out there and, do something, wild, draft a, I know this is dumb, a quarterback or something like a state, Caleb Downs would be an interesting pick at 4, but even if they did something crazy at 4, like the Jeremiah Love, like a Caleb Downs or whatever, maybe even offensive lineman, I'm not going to flip out about it because I think that you can find really good value in the second and third rounds. And that's all you've heard about this draft is it's not about the top. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about the meat and potatoes, like you just mentioned, rounds where you're going to fill your roster out. These are going to be the depth pieces. I mean, hopefully you can find some starters. Hopefully it's not all just depth pieces. But this is not going to be your all Pro Bowl guys for the future. This is going to help you build a solid roster that's a young core that you can keep adding on to, and then you add that star power to.
Yeah, because most of the guys you're going to get in day 3, and there are rare exceptions, and there are examples, but they're going to be the people that's going to help you with the back end of the roster.
Yeah.
And because it's necessary. I mean, we know that it's $301.2 million, unprecedented number salary cap, up $22 million from last year. But you can only carve up that pie so many ways. And, the Titans are fortunate that you're not spending 30 to 35% of your cap on a quarterback. And that's why you've got to build what you can build right now so that if you catch fire and stack some wins and, Cam just lights it on fire and they can keep him protected, you can afford to spend in some other places. That's what we're going to see with these teams that are having cap issues right now. I mean, it wasn't that long ago the Titans were in that boat.
That's true.
It's like, well, we can only get this and go that. How many people were in the chat or calling going, why can't we go shopping like everybody else? Like, well, the salary cap kind of dictates what's what.
And this year they've got it available. And right now I think the reported is a little over 100, especially after the moves they made with Cushenberry. And bringing in Jermaine Johnson. So we'll see what that number ends up being once they get into free agency. And I mean, they've got room to spend. Stoney and I were talking about yesterday is you brought this up with them getting rid of Lloyd Cushenberry. It opens up another position of need at center. And the biggest names at that position are, and I know you brought this up on 3HL on Wednesday. Tyler Lindenbaum is obviously the big name.
Yep.
Connor McGovern from Buffalo.
Yep.
A name that Stoney and I brought up yesterday was Cade Mays, who doesn't have a ton of experience, just 18 games playing center, a little less than 1,000 snaps there. But there was a name that was released today from the Commanders. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name.
It's Tyler Biadasz.
Tyler Biadasz, exactly. Who... I think
he started 31 games for them in over 2 years.
And looking from what I did when I was looking into some of the Washington reporters is there was a little confusion on what went in behind his release.
Yeah, because I don't know of an injury, and
not that I
don't know of anything off the field. It kind of surprised me. But when you're talking about those top guys, Linderbaum and McGovern with Buffalo, I don't think either one of those guys allowed a quarterback sack and weren't penalized a ton. Cade Mays was pretty good in that respect too.
I believe did not allow a sack and only had 2 penalties in 2025. Now, he was hurt. I believe got hurt in week 9, missed a couple weeks. I think he missed 3 games
or something.
with an ankle injury. But he did come back, and he did finish out the year.
Because he was not the starting center to start the year.
That's correct.
Their center got hurt, and he had to come in and play the way out.
And again, a guy who has not played the position, when he was at Tennessee, he was not a center. He was an outside guy. He was a tackle.
But he's a guy that has played up and down the line.
Up and down the line.
So position versatility is, the thing you're talking about with him.
And he's 6'6".
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big guy you got on your line. If you have him right up the middle, which I know typically centers in this league are a little smaller compared to the rest of the offensive linemen, but having a 6'6" guy right there in the middle, stock middle of your line.
Sure. And it would lead you to think that they would go for a veteran if they release a vet. Like, it doesn't say that they wouldn't draft a rookie center, but when you're talking about Cam Ward and the investment you're making in him, I just wonder if you don't go veteran there, because there are some centers we can mention that are at the combine in this process, but
it's not the deepest position this year,
right? And the other part is what Coach Mack always talks about, the time on task. Like, I mean, how many games is Tyler Linderbaum and Connor McGovern? Like, they have experience, and with all-world quarterbacks, and with
a second-year quarterback behind you, now playing in another new system, having a veteran guy up front that can help, point out protections and stuff like that is going to be beneficial.
I mean, the quarterback center exchange, people forget about how important that is.
Would you be behind bringing Corey Levin back? And I know people yesterday when we brought this up were like, well, Corey Levin, we can just bring him back and he can be the starter.
He tore a bicep, didn't he?
Oh, he did. I didn't read that, or I don't remember that.
Yeah, he tore,
But
now listen, you could bring Corey back as depth in this.
That's what I was going to say.
Once he's on the mend. But I'm pretty sure he tore a bicep or a pec, one of the two. But yeah, he's been very serviceable for them.
He has, but I don't think he's
No.
Like,
you want him for rotation and depth.
He's not a full-time starter. And there were some people saying, well, we don't need to go spend, because I think the number for Tyler Linderbaum was reported that
22.
$22 million, which when you first, a little bit of sticker shock when you think of a center.
Somebody was 16. Was it McGovern?
Yeah. McGovern was 16. I think Cade Mays was a little bit under that.
Yeah.
But when you think of $22 million for a center, at first you're like sticker shock, but then you got to remember the number that came out today with the cap increase another $22 million. And the Titans, when you look at their cap space, they can afford to overspend a little bit, especially on a position that's as important as your starting center.
Well, and we outlined the reason why just a minute ago, because you're not paying. You don't have 30 to 35% of your cap carved out for your starting quarterback. He's under a rookie deal, which is huge.
We've talked a lot of football, but we're going to switch gears and we're going to go to the hardwood. We're going to go look at some college hoops from this weekend, specifically number 22, Tennessee, hosting number 17, Alabama at the Food City Center, or Thompson-Boling Arena. I still get a little weird calling it the Food City Center.
It's always going to be Thompson-Boling Arena.
It'll always be TBA to me. But we're going to preview that a little bit because there could potentially be some SEC tournament seeding implications out of this game with how close the top of the SEC is in basketball. We'll dive into that next and wrap up the Friday show right here on 104.5 The Zone. This is Cover 2, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors.
Well, we're right around the corner from March. Is that right? And I still haven't got into the gym the way I should. I have not been consistent. I'm trying to get these love handles off of here. And guess what? I need to be disciplined, so I need to go check out my guys over there at Edge Peptide Hormone Therapy. And they do things a little bit different. They make sure all patients have extensive lab work and face-to-face conversations in office with their nurse practitioner to create a customized treatment plan tailored to your specific needs. They use only U.S.-based FDA-audited compounding pharmacies because knowing where your peptides come from naturally always matters. And Edge walks you through the process, guiding you through your treatment, answering your questions, and supporting you along the way. But they also have something that you will enjoy, and that's the in-body scanner to track weight loss and make sure you're maintaining the muscle mass that you have accumulated. As well as you get to lower your A1C, keeping your cravings in check. And boy, do I need that. As well as prioritizing protein and having someone guide your journey from start to finish. So call the team at Edge Peptide for all your wellness questions at 615, of course, 724-1878. That's 724-1878. Or you can check them out online at edgepeptide.com.
Welcome back into Cover 2, the final segment on this Friday show. Rhett Bryan, Joseph Bonanno with you here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors.
Do you know who that is on the bump music that Ross is playing?
I do not. Inform me.
Eddie Money.
Eddie Money.
It's about 1986, I guess.
Before my time.
Edward Mahoney, former New York City police officer.
Really?
Yep. And then he says in there, just like Ronnie say, be my little baby. That's Ronnie Spector of the Ronettes from the 60s and was married to Phil Spector that created the Wall of Sound and all those famous 60s and early 70s records. Anyway, Eddie Money used to come to the old KDF radio station over on 2nd Avenue, and he was like, hey, who's got a smoke for the money man? Who's got a smoke? He was always bumming a cigarette from somebody.
Well, if Bert was there in those times, Bert would be perfect.
Oh, of course. It's like, hey, sure. Here, money man, have a smoke.
Kindred spirits.
Speaking of smoking, a team that is smoking hot right now.
Smoking. 29 wins.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
29 wins, right?
Yeah, they have or 21 wins. They're 21-7.
That's right. I'm sorry. 29 games.
29 games. They've won 21 of them. They're 11-4 in the SEC. They head on the road against number 22 Tennessee this weekend at Thompson-Boling Arena, aka the Food City Center. I know it's a sponsor. It will always be TBA to me. Always be TBA to me. But they come in. Coming off a game where Alabama made 22 3-pointers, and 16 of those came in the first half, which I believe, according to Slay, who is on the SEC Network and ESPN from time to time, said that is a program record under Nate Oates. 16 threes in a single half. So they're running into a Tennessee team which had a little slip against Missouri, but I don't necessarily think that was a surprise. Missouri's a tough place to play, and this Missouri team, I think, is really tough. They're 5-1 in quad one wins, and I think they actually sealed their shot at an NCAA tournament bid with that win over Tennessee on Tuesday night. But Tennessee, before that Missouri game, in their last 11, won 9 games. The only 2 that they lost were to the same team. So they beat 9 different teams in 11 games and lost to Kentucky twice, and actually lost the same way to Kentucky twice, building up a really big lead and then getting walked down in the second half.
All right, so Zephyr, here's the question. So the Vols knocked them off 79-73, January? Against an NBA G Leaguer.
Yeah, Charles Bediako, who will no longer be on the...
Dropped 13 that night. What's the key to them getting another dub and a valuable SEC win, obviously, as we get towards tournament play?
Well, one thing that they struggled with against Missouri was some inconsistent play from their bigs, who have been the strength of this team, just the depth. With the last couple of weeks, JP Estrella has been out with a foot injury, and so they've really had to lean on a lot of freshmen, especially with Dwayne Brown, the second down low. Felix Akpara had a really good game against Missouri, but their strength is when all of their bigs are playing well, and it's not just a one-man show down low. The other thing is Nate Ament, who since the loss against Florida, was on an absolute scorching streak for Tennessee. Clearly, Tennessee's best offensive player in almost every game, several games of 29 points. The last couple games, he has slowed down a little bit. He had 13 points against Vanderbilt in a game where he got really beat up. Put up 17 points against Missouri, but had a pretty poor shooting second half. So I'd like to see Nate Ament kind of get back into that hot streak, back into that flow that he was in before the last couple of games. Obviously, Jacoby Gillespie, the matchup with LeBaron Philon, who missed Tuesday's game, or Alabama's game on Wednesday against Mississippi State. It's funny enough, LeBaron Philon has missed 2 games this season, and in both games, Alabama has made like 23s, or at least 23s. And so
That's weird.
So Nate Oates joked on Wednesday after the game, he's like, maybe we should sit LeBaron on Saturday against Tennessee, which would be dumb because he's a really good player.
Right.
He was my pick for SEC Player of the Year before the season. I don't think he's going to get that because there's a guy named Darius Akov Jr. and on Arkansas and Thomas Hout on Florida who are going to be battling for that SEC Player of the Year, I believe, this Saturday as number 7 Florida hosts number 20 Arkansas. But back to this Tennessee game. Right now, according to ESPN Analytics, they are giving Tennessee a 66.8% chance to beat Alabama. I don't necessarily want to lean that high in favor of Tennessee. It's a 4.5 point. Tennessee's right now a 4.5 point favorite according to DraftKings. But this Alabama team is tough, and they have been really good shooting the ball as of late. I just would really like to see Tennessee get a little bit more consistent, and I think depth-wise, with J.P. Estrella back, again, like I said, he kind of started getting worked back in against Missouri. It kind of helps bolster that depth down low, which has, again, been their strength. And I want to see that kind of fulfill itself a little bit more consistently. And I want to see Nate Ament get back on a rocking train that he was on.
And Ament, he's their leading rebounder too, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is.
I don't yes, he
He's
is.
16th in the SEC, 6.5 per game.
6.5 a game. Then Jacoby Gillespie is their leading scorer at 18.1 points per game. Another key to this game that I think a guy who has really turned it up offensively, Bishop Boswell, who is known for his defense. He's kind of like Jemai Mashak a little bit, where he's going to give you 110% on the defensive side of the floor. But offensively, it seemed, or at least earlier in the year, he was the guy that was, okay, I'm going to pass this ball to Jacoby. I'm going to let Jacoby do his thing on offense. Or I'm going to give the ball to Nate. I'm going to let Nate do his thing on offense. He wasn't really taking the initiative. Over the last couple of weeks or so, I have seen something in him, especially late in games. I noticed this specifically against Vanderbilt in their win against Vanderbilt last Saturday, is late in that game, Tennessee needing a bucket. And he did not look at Jacoby Gillespie or Nate Ament. He took the ball himself. He put the ball on the floor, and he went and got a tough bucket at the rim, back-to-back actually, and then took a tough fadeaway 2 over Duke Miles. That kind of opened my eyes, because if Bishop Boswell can be another scorer in clutch for this Tennessee team, where you're not relying on Jacoby Gillespie to do everything, or Nate Ament to make another tough shot over really tough defense, because teams are starting to realize, or they're not starting to realize, they've realized this all season, and sometimes he's beaten it, but playing physical on Nate Ament is a way to slow him down. If he can be another scorer for this team, that's going to bode well for Tennessee. Because one thing Ross always tells me is, Ross, I'll let you say this, what helps you in March?
Guard play and defense.
Guard play and defense. Bishop Boswell, guard play, starting to come in. Obviously, the defense is there, but starting to come in his own on the offensive side. So I'd really like to see him continue to take that step in consistency on the offensive side.
And take pressure off of Gillespie, to your point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be a fun Saturday in
5
hoops.
o'clock tip-off, right?
5 o'clock tip-off. The Vol Network call you can hear right here on 104.5 The Zone
indeed.
with Mike Keith.
Of course.
Some other games. I know Vanderbilt, big one, heading on the road to Rupp Arena. That one tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock on ESPN. I think Vanderbilt's going to get them. I don't think... Kentucky's been on a slide recently. They kind of got a little get back against South Carolina, but I think Vanderbilt, the way they match up, I think they're going to get Kentucky.
Brennan Thompson, wide receiver, Mississippi State, tomorrow at the Combine, 4.2540. Book it.
You heard it here. Reds Nuggets dropping a prediction for the NFL Combine. 3HL is up next. This has been a great week. Zach and Blaine will be back with you on Monday. For Rhett Bryan, I'm Joseph Bonanno. Oh my gosh, I forgot the outro.
In the meantime.
In between time.
Peace.